The concrete was still wet with blood when Brooklyn ran. She was only 7 years old, her pink sneakers slapping against the pavement as she fled from the toy factory where her mother worked. Behind her, she could still hear her mama's voice, weak and hurt, calling her name. But the scary man with the angry face had told Brooklyn to run, told her to get away before he did worse things, and so she ran even though everything in her small body wanted to turn back. Just 15 minutes ago, everything had been fine. Brooklyn had been sitting on the curb outside Prestige Toys Manufacturing, waiting for her mama's shift to end. She'd been playing with her favorite doll, a beautiful brown-skinned princess doll with a bright green dress that her mama had saved for months to buy her. It wasn't from the factory where mama worked. Those toys mama always said weren't made with love anymore. Brooklyn had been humming a song and making her doll dance when the mean supervisor, Mr. Morrison, came storming out of the factory. His face was red and twisted with anger. He'd been yelling at someone inside, and when he saw Brooklyn sitting there with her doll, something in his expression turned even meaner. "You think toys are so precious?" he'd shouted at her, even though Brooklyn hadn't said anything to him at all. "You think your mama's job is so safe? Let me show you what I think about toys." Before Brooklyn could move, Mr. Morrison had snatched the doll right out of her hands. Brooklyn had gasped and reached for it, but he'd held it high above his head. Then, as Brooklyn watched in horror, he'd thrown her precious doll to the ground and stomped on it. Once, twice, 3 times. The doll's beautiful face cracked. Her green dress tore. Her arms snapped off completely. Brooklyn had started crying, big tears rolling down her cheeks. That's when Mama had come running out. "What is wrong with you?" Mama had shouted at Mr. Morrison, her voice loud and angry in a way Brooklyn had never heard before. Mama never shouted. Mama was always gentle and soft-spoken. But seeing Brooklyn's broken doll and her daughter's tears had made Mama fierce. Mama had bent down to grab the broken doll pieces, and that's when Mr. Morrison had done the worst thing of all. He'd shoved Mama. Not just a little push, but a hard, violent shove that sent Mama tumbling backward. Brooklyn watched in slow-motion horror as her mama's head hit the concrete curb with a sickening crack. Blood started spreading on the ground beneath Mama's head, dark and terrifying. "Mama!" Brooklyn had screamed, running to her mother's side. But Mr. Morrison had grabbed Brooklyn's arm, squeezing it so tight it hurt. "You better run along now, little girl," he'd hissed at her, his breath smelling sour and mean. "Run before something worse happens. And if you tell anyone it was an accident, you hear me? Your mama just fell. Tell them she fell." He'd released Brooklyn's arm and walked back into the factory like nothing had happened, leaving Mama bleeding on the ground. Brooklyn had knelt beside her mama, whose eyes were closed and whose skin looked too pale. "Mama, wake up," Brooklyn had whispered, touching her mama's face with trembling fingers. "Please wake up." Mama's eyes had fluttered open just a little bit. "Brooklyn, baby," Mama had whispered, her voice so weak Brooklyn could barely hear it. "Go, get help. Run to the diner. Down the street. Get help." "I don't want to leave you," Brooklyn had sobbed. "Go, baby. Please. I'll be okay. Just go." So Brooklyn had run. She'd run faster than she'd ever run in her whole life, her lungs burning and her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break right through her chest. The diner Mama mentioned was 3 blocks away, and Brooklyn knew it because sometimes Mama would take her there for pancakes on special days. As she ran, Brooklyn kept thinking about what Mr. Morrison had said. He'd told her to lie, to say it was an accident. But Mama had taught Brooklyn that lying was wrong. Mama said the truth always mattered no matter what. Brooklyn wouldn't lie. Not even to the scary man. The diner came into view and Brooklyn saw something that made her run even faster. Outside the diner, in the parking lot, there were motorcycles. Lots of them. Big, shiny motorcycles lined up in a neat row. And standing near them, talking and laughing, were the bikers who rode those motorcycles. Brooklyn had seen these bikers before. They came to the diner every Saturday afternoon. They wore leather jackets and looked tough, but Brooklyn had once seen one of them help an old lady carry her groceries, so she thought maybe they were the kind of tough that was actually nice underneath. Right now, she needed someone tough and nice. She needed help. Brooklyn burst into the parking lot, gasping for air, tears streaming down her face. The bikers turned to look at her, surprise on their faces. "Please," Brooklyn choked out, running toward the closest biker, a tall man with kind brown eyes and dark hair. He was wearing a red leather jacket over a black shirt. "Please, you have to help. They broke my toy and hit my mom. She's bleeding. There's so much blood. Please." The man with the red jacket dropped to one knee immediately, putting himself at Brooklyn's eye level. His face was serious but not scary. "Slow down, sweetheart," he said gently. "Take a breath. Tell me what happened." Where is your mom? At the factory, Brooklyn gasped, pointing back the way she'd come. The toy factory. 3 blocks. The mean man pushed her and she hit her head and there's blood and he told me to run and he broke my doll and mama's hurt really bad and… Hey, the man said softly, putting a hand on Brooklyn's shoulder. We're going to help your mama right now. I promise. Can you show us where she is? Brooklyn nodded frantically. The man turned to the other bikers. Call 911 right now. Tell them we have an assault victim at Prestige Toys Manufacturing, possible head injury. We're heading there now. One of the other bikers, a man with a blue bandana tied around his head, already had his phone out and was dialing. The man in the red jacket looked back at Brooklyn. My name is Harrison. What's your name, brave girl? Brooklyn, she whispered. Okay, Brooklyn. I need you to ride with me. Can you do that? Can you hold on tight and show me exactly where your mama is? Brooklyn nodded. She'd never been on a motorcycle before, but she didn't care. Her mama needed help. Harrison lifted Brooklyn carefully and settled her in front of him on his motorcycle. Hold on to the handles here, he instructed, making sure her hands were secure. I've got you. You're safe. Within seconds, all 5 motorcycles roared to life. The sound was loud and powerful, and Brooklyn felt a tiny bit of hope spark in her chest for the first time since Mama had fallen. They rode fast through the streets, Brooklyn calling out directions. She could feel Harrison's strong presence behind her, keeping her safe, and she knew somehow that this man wouldn't let anything bad happen. When they reached the factory, Brooklyn's heart sank. Mama was still lying on the ground, but now a small crowd of factory workers had gathered around her. Someone had put a jacket under Mama's head, and someone else was kneeling beside her, talking to her. Harrison stopped the motorcycle and helped Brooklyn down. Together they ran to Mama's side. Mama, Brooklyn cried, dropping to her knees. Tasha's eyes opened, and even though she looked hurt and tired, she managed a small smile when she saw Brooklyn. Baby, you got help. Good girl. Harrison knelt beside them. Ma'am, I'm Harrison. An ambulance is on the way. Can you tell me what happened? My supervisor, Tasha said weakly, wincing in pain. Greg Morrison. He destroyed Brooklyn's doll. When I confronted him, he pushed me. Art. I think my wrist is broken too. I can't move it. One of the factory workers, a woman with gray hair, spoke up. I saw the whole thing from the window. Greg Morrison assaulted her. He's a bully and everyone here knows it, but we're all too scared to speak up because he fires anyone who crosses him. Harrison's jaw tightened and Brooklyn saw anger flash in his eyes. But when he looked at Mama and Brooklyn, his expression softened again. No one should have to be scared at their workplace, Harrison said firmly. And no one should ever hurt a woman or frighten a child. I promise you, this is going to be made right. In the distance, Brooklyn could hear sirens approaching. The ambulance was coming. Harrison looked at the other bikers who had gathered around. Tony, James, stay here and give statements to the police. Kevin, come with me to the hospital. We need to make sure this family is taken care of. Brooklyn felt Mama's hand weakly grasp hers. Thank you, Mama whispered to Harrison, tears sliding down her temples. Thank you for helping us. It's what anyone should do, Harrison replied gently. And we're not going anywhere until we know you're both safe. When the ambulance arrived, the paramedics quickly assessed Tasha's injuries. As they carefully lifted her onto a stretcher, Brooklyn started to cry again. I want to go with Mama, Brooklyn said, her voice small and frightened. You can ride with us, one of the paramedics, a kind woman with a warm smile, said. Come on, sweetie. But Harrison stepped forward. If it's all right with everyone, I'd like to follow in my truck and bring Brooklyn. She's been very brave and I want to make sure both of them have support at the hospital. The paramedic looked at Tasha, who nodded weakly. Please, Tasha said. Brooklyn, go with Mr. Harrison. He helped us. It's okay. Brooklyn looked up at Harrison, this stranger who had dropped everything to help them. His eyes were kind and his presence made her feel safe. Okay, Brooklyn whispered. One of the bikers had already pulled up a truck, and Harrison settled Brooklyn into the passenger seat, making sure her seatbelt was secure. As they followed the ambulance to the hospital, Brooklyn stared out the window, her mind replaying everything that had happened. Is Mama going to be okay? Brooklyn asked in a small voice. Harrison glanced at her, and his expression was serious but reassuring. The doctors are going to take very good care of your Mama. She's strong. I can tell. And you know what? You're strong too. You did exactly the right thing by getting help. Mr. Morrison told me to lie, Brooklyn said quietly. He told me to say Mama just fell. But Mama always says lying is wrong. Harrison's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Your mama is absolutely right. Lying is wrong, especially when someone is hurt. You did the brave thing by telling the truth. I'm proud of you, Brooklyn. Those words made something warm bloom in Brooklyn's chest despite all the scary things that had happened. Someone was proud of her. As they pulled into the hospital parking lot, Brooklyn took a deep breath. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for certain. Harrison had promised to make things right. And somehow, looking at his determined face, Brooklyn believed him. Would you let someone hurt your child and get away with it? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think should happen to Mr. Morrison. And please subscribe so you don't miss what happens next in this story. The emergency room was bright with fluorescent lights and busy with nurses and doctors moving quickly between rooms. Brooklyn held tight to Harrison's hand as they walked through the automatic doors, following the path the paramedics had taken with Mama. A nurse at the front desk looked up as they approached. She was a young woman with copper-colored skin and her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her name tag read Angela. Are you family? Angela asked, looking between Harrison and Brooklyn. I'm a friend helping out, Harrison said calmly. This is Brooklyn Coleman. Her mother, Tasha Coleman, was just brought in by ambulance. She was assaulted at her workplace and has a head injury and possible broken wrist. Angela's expression softened when she looked at Brooklyn's tear-stained face. Okay, honey. Your mama is with the doctors right now. They're taking good care of her. Why don't you have a seat in the waiting room, and I'll come get you as soon as you can see her. Brooklyn's lower lip trembled. She didn't want to wait. She wanted to see Mama right now and make sure she was okay. Harrison seemed to sense her distress. He knelt down beside her. Brooklyn, the doctors need to examine your mama and make sure they understand all her injuries so they can help her properly. It won't take long, I promise. And I'll wait right here with you the whole time. Is that okay? Brooklyn nodded reluctantly. She trusted Harrison, even though she'd only known him for less than an hour. There was something steady and reliable about him, something that made her feel safe. They sat down in the waiting room, which had plastic chairs in rows and a television playing quietly in the corner. Harrison stayed close to Brooklyn, and after a few minutes he spoke softly. Brooklyn, are you hungry? When was the last time you ate? Brooklyn thought about it. She'd had lunch at school, but that felt like a very long time ago. Her stomach was tied in knots with worry, but now that Harrison mentioned it, she realized she was hungry. Lunchtime at school? Brooklyn said quietly. Harrison nodded. Okay. I'm going to step over to that vending machine and get you some crackers and juice. I'll be right there where you can see me. Don't move from this seat, all right? Okay, Brooklyn agreed. She watched as Harrison walked to the vending machine just across the waiting room. He was tall and moved with confidence, and Brooklyn noticed that other people in the waiting room seemed to look at him with curiosity. His red leather jacket and biker boots made him stand out, but his face was kind. Harrison returned with a package of cheese crackers and a small bottle of apple juice. Here you go. You need to keep your strength up. Brooklyn opened the crackers with shaking hands and took a small bite. She didn't realize how hungry she was until the first cracker hit her stomach. Within minutes, she'd eaten the whole package and drunk half the juice. Better? Harrison asked with a small smile. Brooklyn nodded. Thank you. They sat in silence for a few moments, and then Brooklyn looked up at Harrison. Why did you help us? You don't even know us. Harrison was quiet for a moment, as if considering his answer carefully. Because helping people is the right thing to do. And because no child should ever have to be scared the way you were scared today. No mother should be hurt for standing up for her child. Are you rich? Brooklyn asked suddenly. She'd noticed his expensive-looking watch and the way he carried himself. Plus, he'd come to the hospital in a truck that looked brand new. Harrison smiled slightly. I do okay. Why do you ask? You seem like someone important, Brooklyn said honestly. Like someone on TV or something. I'm just a person like everyone else, Harrison said gently. I've been fortunate in my business, and I try to use what I have to help others when I can. Before Brooklyn could ask more questions, the nurse named Angela appeared. Brooklyn? You can see your mama now. She's in room 7. Follow me. Brooklyn jumped up immediately and Harrison stood as well. They followed Angela down a hallway and into a room where Mama was lying on a hospital bed. Mama's head was bandaged and her left wrist was wrapped in a temporary splint. She looked pale and tired, but when she saw Brooklyn, her face lit up. Baby, Mama said, her voice hoarse but full of love. Brooklyn ran to the bedside. Mama, are you okay? I'm going to be fine, Mama said, though Brooklyn could see the pain in her eyes. She reached out her good hand and Brooklyn took it carefully. The doctor says I have a concussion and my wrist is fractured. But I'll heal. thanks to you getting help so fast. A doctor entered the room then, a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes. His name tag identified him as Dr. Ramon Garcia. Miss Coleman, I see you have your support system here, Dr. Garcia said with a warm smile. Let me explain what we found. You have a moderate concussion, which means you'll need to rest for at least a week and avoid screens and bright lights. Your wrist has a clean fracture and will need to be in a cast for 6 weeks. We'll get you fitted for that before you leave today. The good news is that with proper care, you should make a full recovery. Mama nodded, but Brooklyn saw worry flicker across her face. How much is all this going to cost? I have insurance through the factory, but it's not very good. The deductible is high. Dr. Garcia glanced at his chart. The billing department will go over everything with you. But right now, let's focus on getting you taken care of. Harrison, who had been standing quietly near the door, stepped forward. Excuse me, Dr. Garcia. Is there any reason Miss Coleman couldn't be moved to a private room for her comfort? Dr. Garcia looked surprised. No medical reason. But private rooms aren't covered by most basic insurance plans. That's not a concern, Harrison said firmly. Please arrange for a private room, and make sure Miss Coleman and her daughter have everything they need. Meals, comfort items, anything. Mama's eyes widened. Sir, I can't let you do that. I don't even know you. This is too much. Harrison moved closer to the bed, his expression gentle but determined. Miss Coleman, my name is Harrison Drake. What happened to you today was wrong and unjust. I have resources and I want to help. Please let me. But why? Mama asked, tears forming in her eyes. Why would you help strangers? Because someone should, Harrison said simply. And because Brooklyn was brave enough to ask for help. That kind of courage deserves to be met with kindness. Please let me do this. Let me help with the medical bills, the recovery, anything you need. Brooklyn tugged on her mama's good hand. Mama, please say yes. He's nice. He gave me crackers and juice and he promised to help us. Mama looked at her daughter's face, then at Harrison's sincere expression. Brooklyn could see the internal struggle. Mama had always been proud, always worked hard for everything they had. Accepting help was hard for her. But then Mama's face crumpled slightly and she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't need to repay me, Harrison said gently. Just focus on getting better. That's all I ask. Dr. Garcia looked between them with approval. I'll arrange for the private room transfer right away. Miss Coleman, you'll need to stay overnight for observation because of the concussion. Tomorrow, if everything looks good, you can go home with care instructions. After the doctor left, a police officer arrived. It was Officer Patricia Hughes, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She had her notepad out and ready. Miss Coleman, I need to get your statement about what happened today, Officer Hughes said, pulling up a chair beside the bed. Mama told the whole story, her voice shaking at times. Brooklyn listened, remembering every awful moment. When Officer Hughes turned to Brooklyn for her account, Brooklyn told the truth about everything, including how Mr. Morrison had told her to lie. Officer Hughes's jaw tightened as she wrote. That's witness intimidation on top of assault. We've already spoken to several factory workers who saw the incident. Mr. Morrison is being brought in for questioning now. Will he go to jail? Brooklyn asked quietly. Officer Hughes looked at her kindly. That's for the courts to decide, sweetheart. But I can tell you that what he did was very wrong and there will be consequences. Your mama can also file a civil suit if she chooses. After Officer Hughes left, Harrison made a phone call. He stepped into the hallway, but Brooklyn could hear part of the conversation. Yes, I need the best personal injury attorney in the city. No, not for me. For someone who needs protection from workplace retaliation and justice for assault. Money is not an issue. Tomorrow morning? Perfect. When Harrison came back into the room, Mama was staring at him with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. You just arranged for a lawyer? Mama asked. The best one I know, Harrison confirmed. He'll meet with you tomorrow. Don't worry about costs. It's handled. Mr. Drake, Mama said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't understand why you're doing all this. We're nobody. I'm just a factory worker. Brooklyn is just a little girl. Why would someone like you care so much? Harrison sat down in the chair beside the bed, his expression thoughtful. Miss Coleman, may I be honest with you? Mama nodded. I've spent years building businesses and making money, Harrison said quietly. I've been successful by most measures. But lately I've been asking myself what it's all for. What's the point of having resources if I don't use them to make a difference? When Brooklyn ran up to me in that parking lot, terrified and begging for help, something clicked. This is what my success should be used for. Helping people who need it. Protecting those who can't protect themselves. Making sure that bullies like Greg Morrison face consequences. Mama wiped at her eyes with her good hand. You're a good man, Mr. Drake. Please call me Harrison, he said with a small smile. A nurse came in then to transfer Mama to the private room. It was spacious and quiet, with a window overlooking the city and a comfortable chair that converted to a bed for Brooklyn to sleep on. As evening settled in, Harrison ordered dinner for all of them from a nice restaurant nearby. Brooklyn had never tasted food so good, chicken tenders that were crispy and perfect with fresh fruit on the side. After dinner, Harrison pulled out his phone. Brooklyn, would you like to see pictures of motorcycles? I have a whole collection. Brooklyn's eyes lit up. Really? For the next hour, Harrison showed Brooklyn pictures of different motorcycles, telling her about each one. He made her laugh with stories about learning to ride and the adventures he'd had with his biker club. Mama watched from the bed, smiling despite her pain. Harrison, Mama said softly after Brooklyn had yawned for the third time, you've done so much for us already. You don't have to stay. I'm sure you have important things to do. Harrison shook his head. Nothing more important than making sure you and Brooklyn are safe and comfortable. Besides, I want to be here tomorrow when the lawyer arrives. If that's okay with you. More than okay, Mama said, her voice full of warmth. I don't know what we did to deserve your kindness, but thank you. Truly. As Brooklyn settled into the converted bed chair, drowsiness overtaking her, she looked at Harrison sitting in another chair, his red jacket hung carefully on the back. Harrison. Brooklyn said sleepily. Yes. You're like a superhero. But instead of a cape, you have a motorcycle. Harrison smiled, and Brooklyn saw something soft in his expression. You're the real hero, Brooklyn. You saved your mama today by being brave. As Brooklyn drifted off to sleep, she heard Mama and Harrison talking quietly. Their voices were soothing, like a promise that everything was going to be okay. And for the first time since the terrible thing had happened, Brooklyn believed it might be true. Morning light filtered through the hospital room window, gentle and warm. Brooklyn woke up slowly, momentarily confused about where she was. Then everything came rushing back. Mr. Morrison, Mama getting hurt, the bikers, Harrison. She sat up and looked around. Mama was still asleep in the hospital bed, her bandaged head resting on white pillows. And there, in the chair by the window, was Harrison. He was awake, scrolling through his phone quietly. When he noticed Brooklyn stirring, he smiled. Good morning. How did you sleep? Okay, Brooklyn said softly, not wanting to wake Mama. Did you sleep here all night? I did, Harrison confirmed. I wanted to make sure you both were safe. Brooklyn's stomach rumbled and Harrison's smile widened. Hungry? I ordered breakfast. It should be here any minute. As if on cue, a nurse entered with a tray of food. Real breakfast, not hospital food. There were fluffy scrambled eggs, toast with butter and jam, fresh strawberries and orange juice. The smell woke Mama, who blinked her eyes open. What time is it? She asked groggily. 8 in the morning, Harrison said. How are you feeling? Mama shifted carefully, wincing slightly. Sore. But better than last night. Is that food I smell? Breakfast, Harrison said, helping to raise the head of Mama's bed so she could sit up more comfortably. You need to eat to keep your strength up. As they ate, Dr. Garcia came in for morning rounds. He checked Mama's eyes with a light, asked her questions about her symptoms, and examined her wrist. Everything looks good, Miss Coleman, Dr. Garcia said with an approving nod. Your concussion is mild to moderate, which is good news. You can go home today, but you'll need to rest strictly for at least a week. No work, no screens for more than a few minutes at a time, no bright lights. Someone will need to stay with you to monitor for any changes in symptoms. Mama's face fell. I can't afford to take a week off work. I'll lose my job. And I don't have anyone who can stay with me. It's just Brooklyn and me. Harrison spoke up immediately. She'll have help. I'll make sure of it. Mr. Drake, Mama started, you've already done so much. Harrison, he corrected gently. And I meant what I said yesterday. I'm here to help however you need. Before Mama could protest further, there was a knock on the door. A man in an expensive gray suit entered, carrying a leather briefcase. He was in his 50s with silver hair and an air of authority. Miss Coleman? I'm attorney Richard Foster. Mr. Drake contacted me about your case. Harrison stood and shook the attorney's hand. Richard, thank you for coming so quickly. Brooklyn watched as attorney Foster pulled up a chair and opened his briefcase, taking out a legal pad and pen. His expression was serious but kind. "Miss Coleman, I've already begun looking into your case," Attorney Foster said. "Based on the police report and witness statements, you have a very strong case against both Greg Morrison personally and Prestige Toys Manufacturing as a company. What Morrison did constitutes assault and battery. The company is liable for allowing a hostile work environment and for their supervisor's actions during work hours." Mama listened carefully as Attorney Foster explained the legal process. He talked about pressing criminal charges, filing a civil lawsuit, and seeking damages for medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, and emotional distress. "But I can't afford a lawyer," Mama said quietly. "I barely make enough to pay rent and keep food on the table." "Miss Coleman, Mr. Drake has retained my services on your behalf," Attorney Foster said. "There will be no cost to you. Additionally, personal injury cases like this are often taken on contingency, meaning the lawyer only gets paid if you win. But in this case, all legal fees are covered regardless." Mama looked at Harrison, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't understand. Why are you doing this?" Harrison moved closer, his voice gentle but firm. "Because what happened to you was wrong. Because Brooklyn was terrorized. Because Greg Morrison has probably done this to other people and will keep doing it unless someone stops him. Let me help you fight this. Please." Brooklyn tugged on her mama's good hand. "Please say yes, Mama. Harrison wants to help us. And that mean man hurt you. He should get in trouble." Mama looked at her daughter's earnest face, then back at Harrison and Attorney Foster. Finally she nodded. "Okay. Yes. Thank you. I accept your help." Attorney Foster smiled. "Excellent. I'll begin filing the necessary paperwork today. In the meantime, Miss Coleman, I need you to write down everything you remember about not just yesterday's incident, but any other times Morrison or the company has acted inappropriately. That might take a while," Mama said with a bitter laugh. "Greg Morrison has been awful to a lot of people. The whole factory is scared of him." "Perfect," Attorney Foster said, making notes. "We'll interview other employees as well. The more documentation we have, the stronger the case." After Attorney Foster left, Dr. Garcia returned with discharge papers and instructions. He went over everything carefully with Mama, explaining signs of concussion complications to watch for and how to care for her casted wrist. "You'll need to see an orthopedic specialist in 2 weeks to check on the wrist healing," Dr. Garcia added. "And I want you to follow up with your primary care doctor in 1 week about the concussion." "I don't have a primary care doctor," Mama admitted quietly. "I usually just go to the urgent care clinic when Brooklyn or I get sick." Harrison looked at Dr. Garcia. "Can you recommend someone? One of the best doctors in the city?" Dr. Garcia pulled out his phone and wrote down a name and number. "Dr. Patricia Reynolds. She's excellent and her office is downtown. Tell them I referred you." Harrison took the paper. "I'll make sure she gets an appointment." "I can't keep accepting all this help," Mama protested weakly, though Brooklyn could tell her heart wasn't really in the protest anymore. "You can and you will," Harrison said with a kind smile. "Now let's get you both home." Getting Mama discharged took another hour of paperwork. The billing department tried to give Mama forms about payment plans, but Harrison stepped in and handled everything directly. Brooklyn watched as he gave them his credit card and simply paid the entire hospital bill without blinking. "That was thousands of dollars," Mama whispered to him as they left the billing office. "It was necessary care," Harrison replied simply. "Don't worry about it." Harrison had arranged for one of his friends from the biker club, a man named Kevin, to bring a comfortable SUV to the hospital instead of the motorcycles. Kevin was a big man with warm brown skin and a gentle smile. He wore a bright blue shirt and jeans. "Hey there," Kevin said cheerfully, helping Mama into the front seat where she'd be most comfortable. "I'm Kevin. Harrison told me we're getting a very brave lady and her daughter home safe." Brooklyn climbed into the back seat and Harrison sat beside her. As Kevin drove, following Mama's directions to their apartment, Brooklyn looked out the window at the city passing by. Their neighborhood wasn't fancy. The apartment building was old and needed paint. But it was home. Kevin pulled up in front and helped Mama out carefully. Harrison looked at the building, then at Mama. "Which floor?" "Third floor," Mama said. "There's an elevator, but it breaks down a lot." "Let's hope today isn't one of those days," Harrison said, offering his arm to Mama for support. The elevator worked, thankfully, and they made it to apartment 3C. Brooklyn unlocked the door with the key Mama kept in her purse, and they all stepped inside. The apartment was small but clean. There was a living room with an old couch and a television on a stand. The kitchen was tiny, barely big enough for 2 people. Brooklyn's room was the size of a closet, with just enough space for a twin bed and a small dresser. Mama's room was a bit bigger but not by much. Brooklyn saw Harrison looking around, taking everything in. She felt embarrassed suddenly. Their apartment was so tiny and old compared to what someone like Harrison probably had. But Harrison's expression wasn't judgmental. If anything, he looked thoughtful and a little sad. "Let's get you settled in bed," Harrison said to Mama, helping her to her room. Kevin stayed in the living room with Brooklyn. "Your mama's going to be just fine," he said kindly. "Harrison's the best person I know. If he says he's going to help, he means it." In Mama's room, Harrison made sure she was comfortable with extra pillows and had water within reach of her good hand. Then he came back out to the living room where Brooklyn and Kevin waited. "Tasha," Harrison called, using Mama's first name for the first time. "May I talk to you about something?" "Of course," Mama's voice came from the bedroom. Harrison returned to her room and Brooklyn could hear them talking quietly. After a few minutes, Harrison came back out, and his expression was determined. "Brooklyn, I need to run some errands. Kevin is going to stay here with you and your mom. Is that okay?" Brooklyn looked at Kevin, who gave her a reassuring smile. "I make great grilled cheese sandwiches," Kevin offered. "Okay," Brooklyn agreed. Harrison left and Kevin proved to be true to his word. He made grilled cheese sandwiches for lunch and found a kids' movie on television for Brooklyn to watch. He kept the volume low so Mama could rest. About 2 hours later, Harrison returned. But he wasn't alone. He had 2 people with him, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair, and a younger woman with a bright smile. "Tasha, Brooklyn, this is Nurse Margaret," Harrison introduced the older woman. "She's a home health nurse. She's going to check on Tasha twice a day for the next week to make sure everything is healing properly. And this is Rachel from a home care service. She'll be here during the day to help with meals, housework, and keeping an eye on things." Mama had gotten up from bed when she heard voices, leaning against the doorframe. "Harrison, this is too much. I can't afford nurses and home care helpers. You're not paying for it." "I am," Harrison said firmly but kindly. "Tasha, please. You need help recovering. Brooklyn shouldn't have to worry about taking care of you while you're hurt. Let these wonderful people help. That's what they do best." Nurse Margaret stepped forward with a professional smile. "Miss Coleman, I'll just be checking your vital signs, making sure your concussion is healing properly, and changing your head bandage when needed. It's really no trouble at all." Rachel added, "And I'll make sure meals are prepared, the apartment stays clean, and Brooklyn gets to and from school safely. I have excellent references." Brooklyn watched as Mama's resistance crumbled. Tears started rolling down Mama's cheeks. "I don't deserve this kindness." Harrison moved closer, his voice gentle. "Tasha, you deserve every bit of kindness in the world. You're a hard worker, a devoted mother, and a brave woman who stood up to a bully to protect your daughter. If anyone deserves help, it's you." Mama wiped at her tears with her good hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." Over the next hour, Nurse Margaret did a thorough check of Mama's condition and declared everything was progressing well. Rachel familiarized herself with the apartment and made a grocery list of things they needed. Harrison pulled out his wallet and handed Rachel several $100 bills. "Get everything on that list and anything else you think they might need. And Brooklyn," he turned to her, "Rachel is going to take you shopping for some new clothes and shoes. And maybe we can replace that doll that got broken." Brooklyn's eyes went wide. "Really? Really?" Harrison confirmed with a smile. "But nothing can replace Princess Grace," Brooklyn said sadly, referring to her broken doll. "Mama saved for months to buy her." Harrison knelt down to Brooklyn's level. "You're right. Nothing can replace something special like that. But maybe we can find a new friend for you. Someone who can help you feel better. Would that be okay?" Brooklyn thought about it, then nodded slowly. "Okay." That afternoon, while Mama rested under Nurse Margaret's watchful eye, Harrison took Brooklyn and Rachel shopping. They went to a nice department store and Harrison let Brooklyn pick out new clothes. Bright dresses, comfortable pants, pretty shirts. Everything Brooklyn chose, Harrison bought without hesitation. Then they went to a toy store. Brooklyn walked slowly through the aisles looking at all the dolls. Finally, she stopped in front of a beautiful doll with brown skin and natural curly hair. The doll wore a bright red dress with sparkles. "This one," Brooklyn said softly. "She looks strong. Like Mama." "Then she's perfect," Harrison said, taking the doll to the counter. On the way back to the apartment, Brooklyn held the new doll carefully. "Harrison," she said quietly. "Yes." "Are you going to leave now? Now that Mama has nurses and Rachel to help?" Harrison glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Would you want me to stay around?" Brooklyn nodded. You make me feel safe. Then I'll keep visiting, Harrison promised. In fact, I'd like to check on you and your mama every day if that's okay. I want to make sure you're both doing well. Okay, Brooklyn said, smiling for the first time since the awful thing had happened. I'd like that. When they got back to the apartment, Mama was awake and sitting carefully on the couch. Her face lit up when she saw all the shopping bags. Harrison, you bought out the whole store, Mama said, but she was smiling. Just the essentials, Harrison replied with a grin. And one very important new doll. Brooklyn showed Mama the new doll, and Mama's eyes grew misty. She's beautiful, baby. I'm going to name her Hope, Brooklyn declared. Because Harrison gave me hope today. Harrison looked touched by that, his eyes showing emotion. That's a perfect name. As evening came, Rachel prepared a delicious dinner of baked chicken, rice, and vegetables. They all ate together, and Brooklyn noticed how Mama and Harrison kept looking at each other when they thought no one was watching. After dinner, as Harrison prepared to leave for the night, Mama walked him to the door despite her injuries. Harrison, Mama said softly, I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done. You don't need to thank me, Harrison replied. Just focus on getting better. That's all I want. Why are you really doing all this? Mama asked, searching his face. The truth. Harrison was quiet for a moment. Because when Brooklyn ran up to me yesterday, I saw someone who needed help. And I realized that I've spent so many years focused on making money and building businesses that I forgot what really matters. Helping people. Making a difference in lives that really need it. You and Brooklyn reminded me what's important. Mama reached out with her good hand and touched Harrison's arm. You're changing our lives. You're changing mine too, Harrison said softly. And as Brooklyn watched from the couch, pretending not to listen, she saw something in the way Mama and Harrison looked at each other. Something warm and gentle. Something that made Brooklyn's heart feel light. Maybe, just maybe, something wonderful was beginning. 3 days had passed since the incident, and Tasha was starting to feel a little stronger. The headaches from her concussion were less intense, and though her casted wrist was awkward and uncomfortable, the pain was manageable with medication. But the best medicine had been the presence of Harrison Drake. True to his word, Harrison had visited every single day. Sometimes he came in the morning with fresh pastries from a bakery. Sometimes he arrived in the afternoon with lunch. He always stayed for at least an hour, talking with Tasha, playing games with Brooklyn, making sure they had everything they needed. Rachel, the home care helper, had been wonderful too. She kept the apartment spotlessly clean, prepared healthy meals, and had even helped Brooklyn with her homework when she returned to school. Nurse Margaret checked in twice daily, monitoring Tasha's recovery with professional efficiency and genuine care. On this particular morning, Harrison arrived earlier than usual. He wore dark jeans and a maroon button-down shirt, and he carried a folder stuffed with papers. His expression was serious. Good morning, Tasha greeted him from the couch where she'd been reading a book. While trying to read. Her concussion still made it hard to focus on text for long periods. Morning, Harrison replied, but his tone was distracted. Is Brooklyn at school? Yes, Rachel walked her there an hour ago. What? Is something wrong? Harrison sat down in the chair across from her, setting the folder on the coffee table. I've been doing some investigating into prestige toys manufacturing in Greg Morrison. What I've found is disturbing. Tasha set her book aside, giving Harrison her full attention. What did you find? Harrison opened the folder and pulled out several sheets of paper. I hired a private investigator to look into the company's practices. Turns out, Prestige Toys has been cutting corners for years. They've been using substandard materials to make toys, failing safety inspections and falsifying quality control reports. Tasha's eyes widened. I suspected something wasn't right, but I had no proof. Are you saying they're making dangerous toys? That's exactly what I'm saying, Harrison confirmed, pulling out more documents. Look at these. There have been 12 complaints filed with the Consumer Product Safety Commission in the last 6 months alone. Toys with small parts that break off easily, creating choking hazards. Action figures with sharp edges. Dolls with toxic paint. But somehow Prestige keeps getting approval to sell. How is that possible? Tasha asked, feeling sick. Money changes hands, Harrison said grimly. My investigator found evidence suggesting that certain inspectors have been bribed to overlook violations. It's corruption at multiple levels. Tasha put her good hand over her mouth. Oh no. I helped package some of those toys. What if a child got hurt because of products I handled? Harrison immediately moved to sit beside her on the couch. Tasha, listen to me. You are not responsible for the company's corrupt practices. You were just trying to earn a living. The blame lies with management and ownership. But those poor children, Tasha whispered. Which is why we're going to stop it, Harrison said firmly. I've already contacted the Consumer Product Safety Commission and provided them with all this evidence. They're launching a full investigation. I've also reached out to several news outlets. This story is going to break wide open. Tasha looked at Harrison with a mixture of admiration and concern. You're going after the whole company. That's going to make you some powerful enemies. Harrison shrugged. I have good lawyers. And more importantly, I have the resources to fight. These companies count on people being too afraid or too poor to stand up to them. But I'm neither afraid nor poor. Tell me more about Greg Morrison, Tasha said. Did your investigator find anything about him? Harrison's jaw tightened. Morrison has a history of workplace violence. This isn't the first time he's assaulted someone. At his previous job, he shoved a warehouse worker who filed a complaint. The case was settled out of court with a non-disclosure agreement. Before that, there were 2 other incidents of threatening behavior at different companies. So he's been doing this for years and getting away with it, Tasha said, anger rising in her chest. Yes. But not anymore, Harrison said. Attorney Foster is building an airtight case. Between the witness statements from your co-workers, the security camera footage from the factory entrance and Morrison's history, he's going to face serious consequences. There was security camera footage? Tasha asked, surprised. Crystal clear footage, Harrison confirmed. It shows everything. Morrison destroying Brooklyn's doll, you confronting him and him violently pushing you to the ground. The factory tried to hide it, but my investigator obtained a copy before they could delete it. It's now in the hands of the police and our attorney. Tasha felt tears prick her eyes. I was so scared no one would believe me. Factory workers are invisible. People like me don't usually win against people like Morrison and the company owners. Harrison took her good hand gently. You're not invisible to me. And you're not alone in this fight. The way Harrison looked at her made Tasha's heart skip. Over the past few days she'd found herself thinking about him more and more. Not just with gratitude, though there was plenty of that, but with something deeper. Something that felt like the beginning of feelings she hadn't experienced in years. Tasha had been alone since Brooklyn's father had left when she was pregnant. She'd focused entirely on survival and raising her daughter. There had been no time or energy for romance. And honestly, after being abandoned once, Tasha had built walls around her heart. But Harrison was slowly, gently breaking through those walls. Harrison, Tasha said softly, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you have a family? A wife or children? Harrison shook his head. No wife. Never been married. No children. I was engaged once, about 10 years ago, but she left when she realized I was more interested in building my business than starting a family. She wanted someone who would be home for dinner every night. I was working 20-hour days back then. Do you regret it? Tasha asked. Harrison was quiet for a moment. I regret not making her a priority. I regret choosing ambition over connection. But I don't regret that the engagement ended. We wanted different things. She's married now to someone who could give her the life she wanted, and I'm happy for her. What do you want now? The question came out before Tasha could stop herself. Harrison met her eyes directly. I want to matter. I've spent 15 years building a business empire. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But at the end of the day, what does it mean if I'm not using it to make a real difference? When Brooklyn ran up to me in that parking lot, something shifted. I realized I'd been searching for purpose and maybe I just found it. Purpose, Tasha repeated softly. I wish I had the luxury of searching for purpose. I'm just trying to survive day to day. Not anymore, Harrison said. Tasha, I want to talk to you about something. Once you're recovered, I'd like to offer you a job. Tasha blinked in surprise. A job? At my company, Drake Enterprises. I have several divisions, including a charitable foundation I'm expanding. I need someone with real-world experience, someone who understands what it's like to struggle, to work in difficult conditions. Someone with compassion and integrity. That's you. Harrison, I'm a factory worker. I don't have a college degree. I don't have business experience. You have something more valuable, Harrison countered. You have heart. You have principles. You stood up to a bully even though you knew it might cost you your job. You raised a remarkable daughter on minimum wage. You've survived things that would have broken other people. That's the kind of strength and character I want in my organization. Tasha felt overwhelmed. What kind of job are you talking about? Community Outreach Coordinator for the Drake Foundation, Harrison said. You'd work with me to identify people and causes that need support. You'd visit communities, talk to people, understand their needs, and help direct resources where they're needed most. The salary is $75,000 a year, plus full health insurance, retirement benefits, and paid time off. Tasha's mouth fell open. 75,000? Harrison, I make 18,000 a year at the factory. That's more than 4 times what I earn now. It's what the position is worth, Harrison said. And honestly, you'd be helping me more than I'd be helping you. I need someone like you to make sure the foundation actually helps real people and doesn't just become another vanity project for rich people to feel good about themselves. Tasha didn't know what to say. Part of her wanted to accept immediately. The financial security alone would change her and Brooklyn's lives completely. But another part of her was scared. Scared of depending on someone. Scared of what would happen if things didn't work out. What if I'm not good at it? Tasha asked quietly. You will be, Harrison said with confidence. But if you're nervous, we can start slowly. Take the next few weeks to recover. Then come visit the office, meet the team, see what we do. You don't have to make any decisions right now. Okay, Tasha said, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Okay. I'll think about it. Harrison smiled, that warm smile that made Tasha feel safe. That's all I ask. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Harrison's phone buzzed. He checked it and frowned. What is it? Tasha asked. It's Attorney Foster. He says we need to meet. Something's happened with the case. Harrison stood up. I should go handle this. Will you be all right? Rachel will be back soon, and Nurse Margaret is coming at noon, Tasha assured him. Go. Do what you need to do. Harrison hesitated, then leaned down and kissed Tasha's forehead gently. It was a brief, sweet gesture, but it made Tasha's heart race. I'll be back later, Harrison promised. After he left, Tasha sat on the couch, touching her forehead where Harrison had kissed her. Something was definitely growing between them. Something real and warm and wonderful. But she was scared. Scared of hoping too much. Scared of believing this could really be her life now. Later that afternoon, after Rachel had returned with Brooklyn from school, Harrison came back to the apartment. This time, Attorney Foster was with him. Tasha, Brooklyn, Attorney Foster greeted them. I have some news about the case. They all sat down in the living room. Brooklyn stayed close to her mama, sensing the serious atmosphere. Greg Morrison has been formally charged with assault and battery, Attorney Foster began. He's also been charged with witness intimidation for threatening Brooklyn. The district attorney is taking this case very seriously. That's good, right? Tasha asked. Very good, Attorney Foster confirmed. But there's more. The factory has fired Morrison and issued a statement condemning his actions. They're trying to distance themselves from him. What about the civil lawsuit? Harrison asked. Morrison's attorney reached out to me today, Attorney Foster said. They want to settle out of court. They're offering $50,000. Tasha gasped. $50,000 was more money than she'd ever imagined having. But Harrison's expression was stern. Don't take it. What? Tasha looked at him in confusion. Harrison, $50,000 would change my life. I could pay off debt, save for Brooklyn's education. They're lowballing you, Harrison said firmly. This isn't just about Morrison anymore. The factory knew about his violent history and hired him anyway. They're liable too. Attorney Foster, what's your recommendation? Attorney Foster nodded. I agree with Harrison. We should go after the factory as well. With the evidence we have about their safety violations and corrupt practices, we could potentially win damages in the hundreds of thousands. But that could take years, Tasha protested. And what if we lose? You won't lose, Harrison said with certainty. We have video evidence, witness statements, documentation of Morrison's history, and proof of the factory's negligence. They'll settle before it goes to trial. But what if they don't? Tasha pressed. What if fighting costs more than just accepting what they're offering? Harrison looked at her seriously. Tasha, I understand your fear. I understand that $50,000 seems like a fortune. But this isn't just about money. It's about justice. It's about making sure this factory can't do this to anyone else. If we settle cheaply now, they'll just move on and keep operating the same way. But if we fight and win big, it sends a message that there are consequences for treating workers as disposable. Tasha looked at Brooklyn, who was watching the adults with wide eyes. What do you think, baby? Should Mama fight or should we take the money they're offering? Brooklyn thought about it seriously. The mean man hurt you, Mama. And Harrison says the factory makes toys that could hurt kids. I think you should fight so no other mamas or kids get hurt. Out of the mouths of children came the clearest wisdom. Tasha looked at Attorney Foster. Reject their offer. We're going to fight. Attorney Foster smiled. Excellent decision. I'll notify their counsel immediately. After Attorney Foster left, Harrison stayed for dinner. Rachel had made spaghetti with meatballs and they all ate together like a family. Brooklyn chattered about her day at school, and Harrison listened attentively, asking questions and making her laugh. After dinner, while Rachel cleaned up the kitchen, Harrison and Tasha sat on the couch together. Brooklyn was in her room playing with her doll Hope. Harrison, Tasha said quietly, I'm terrified. Of the lawsuit? Of everything, Tasha admitted. This feels too good to be true. You helping us, the lawsuit, the job offer. I keep waiting for something bad to happen. I keep waiting to wake up and find out this was all a dream. Harrison turned to face her. I understand that fear. But Tasha, you deserve good things. You and Brooklyn both do. Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and just let yourself be happy. I don't know if I remember how, Tasha said with a sad laugh. Then learn, Harrison said gently. Let me help you remember. He reached out and took her good hand in both of his. Tasha, I need to be honest about something. Over the past few days, spending time with you in Brooklyn, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Maybe ever. I care about you. Not just because of what happened, but because of who you are. Your strength, your kindness, your courage. I find myself thinking about you constantly. Tasha's heart pounded. Harrison, I care about you too. But I'm scared. I haven't let anyone close in 7 years. Not since Brooklyn's father left. I'm not him, Harrison said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. How can you be sure? Tasha asked, tears forming. How can I trust this? You can't be completely sure, Harrison admitted. That's what trust is. It's taking a chance on someone even though there's risk involved. But I can promise you this, I will show up. Every day. Whatever you need. I'm here. A tear rolled down Tasha's cheek, and Harrison gently wiped it away with his thumb. Let me in, Harrison said softly. Let me be part of your life. Not as a benefactor or a helper, but as someone who cares deeply about you and wants to see you happy. Tasha looked into Harrison's eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. Maybe it was time to stop being so afraid. Maybe it was time to take a chance on happiness. Okay, Tasha whispered. Okay. Harrison smiled, that beautiful warm smile, and squeezed her hand gently. From her bedroom, Brooklyn's voice called out. Harrison, can you come read me a bedtime story? Harrison looked at Tasha. May I? Please, Tasha said, smiling through her tears. As Harrison went to read to Brooklyn, Tasha sat on the couch and let herself feel something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Real, genuine hope for a better future. 2 weeks had passed, and Tasha's recovery was progressing beautifully. The headaches had mostly subsided, though she still needed to be careful about screen time and bright lights. Her wrist, though still in a cast, hurt less each day. Nurse Margaret had reduced her visits to once daily, declaring that Tasha was healing remarkably well. But the biggest change wasn't physical. It was emotional. Tasha had let her guard down. She'd allowed Harrison into her life and heart, and each day that trust was rewarded. Harrison had continued his daily visits, never missing a single day. He'd taken Brooklyn to the park on weekends. He'd brought groceries and cooked dinner for them multiple times. He'd simply been present, steadfast and kind. Today was special. Today, Harrison was taking Tasha to visit Drake Enterprises, the headquarters of his business empire, so she could see the office and meet the foundation team. Tasha was nervous but also excited. Rachel helped Tasha get ready, styling her natural hair into beautiful twists and helping her choose an outfit. Tasha selected a bright blue dress that made her brown skin glow and comfortable flats since she still needed to be careful about balance. When Harrison arrived to pick her up, his expression when he saw her made Tasha's cheeks warm. You look beautiful, Harrison said softly. Thank you, Tasha replied, smiling. I'm nervous. Don't be. Everyone's excited to meet you. They drove through the city to the business district, where tall glass buildings reached toward the sky. Harrison pulled into a parking garage beneath one of the tallest buildings. This is it, Harrison said as they rode the elevator up. The 15th floor is the Drake Foundation offices. The elevator doors opened to reveal a modern, bright space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The walls were painted in warm, welcoming colors, not the sterile white Tasha had expected. Comfortable seating areas were scattered throughout, and real plants brought life to the space. A woman in her 30s with dark hair and a friendly smile approached them. She wore a professional green blazer and skirt. "Harrison, you're here," she said warmly. Then she turned to Tasha. "And you must be Tasha. I'm Jennifer Lewis, the Foundation's program director. It's so wonderful to meet you." "Nice to meet you too," Tasha said, shaking Jennifer's hand with her good hand. "Let me give you the tour," Jennifer offered enthusiastically. For the next hour, Jennifer showed Tasha around the Foundation offices. She explained the various programs they ran: scholarships for underprivileged students, grants for small businesses and struggling communities, emergency assistance for families facing crises, and workplace safety initiatives. "The workplace safety program is new," Jennifer explained. "Harrison started it 2 weeks ago, actually. He's very passionate about it." Tasha smiled, knowing exactly why that program had been started. Jennifer introduced Tasha to the other team members. There was Marcus. Wait, she couldn't use that name. Let me restart. There was Gabriel, a young man in his 20s who managed the scholarship program. There was Patricia, a middle-aged woman who coordinated the emergency assistance program. There was James, who handled grant applications from small businesses. Everyone was welcoming and enthusiastic. They treated Tasha not as a charity case or someone to be pitied, but as a colleague they were excited to work with. "If you join our team," Patricia said warmly, "you'll bring something we desperately need: real-world perspective. Most of us come from privileged backgrounds. We mean well, but we don't always understand what people are actually facing. You would help us do better work." After the tour, Harrison took Tasha to his personal office. It was spacious but not ostentatious. One wall was entirely windows with a stunning view. The desk was large but functional. Framed photos lined a shelf. Harrison with his biker club, Harrison at various charity events, Harrison with people who looked like family. "Is that your family?" Tasha asked, pointing to one photo showing Harrison with an older couple and a woman about his age. "My parents and my sister," Harrison confirmed. "They live in Colorado. I should visit them more often than I do. Do they know about me in Brooklyn?" Harrison smiled. "I called my mother last night and told her all about you. She wants to meet you. She said, and I quote, 'It's about time you found someone who makes you smile the way you described.'" Tasha felt her heart flutter. "You described me to your mother?" "I did," Harrison admitted. "I told her I'd met someone extraordinary. Someone brave and kind and beautiful. Someone who makes me want to be a better person." Tasha moved closer to Harrison. They'd been growing closer each day, but there had been an unspoken agreement to take things slowly while Tasha recovered. But now, standing in his office, feeling stronger and more hopeful than she had in years, Tasha felt ready to take another step forward. "Harrison," she said softly, "I want to accept the job offer. I want to work here with you, helping people through the foundation." Harrison's face lit up. "Really? You're sure?" "I'm sure," Tasha confirmed. "It feels right. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. When your cast comes off and your doctor clears you for full activity, we'll start your training," Harrison said. "We'll start slow, ease you into it. And if you ever feel overwhelmed or need to adjust anything, you tell me immediately. Your well-being comes first." "Thank you," Tasha said. "For everything. For believing in me when I didn't even believe in myself." "Tasha," Harrison said, stepping closer, "there's something else I need to say." "What is it?" "These past 2 weeks have been the best weeks of my life," Harrison said. "Coming to see you in Brooklyn every day, sharing meals, talking for hours, watching Brooklyn play. Feels like home." "You feel like home." Tasha's breath caught. "Harrison." "I know we haven't known each other long," Harrison continued. "I know this all happened because of terrible circumstances. But something real is growing between us. I feel it. Do you feel it too?" "Yes," Tasha whispered. "I feel it too. It terrifies me, but I feel it." "You don't have to be afraid," Harrison said gently. He reached up and cupped her face with his hand. "I'm falling for you, Tasha Coleman. I'm falling for your strength and your kindness and your beautiful smile. I'm falling for the way you love Brooklyn so fiercely. I'm falling for the way you make me want to be better." Tears pricked Tasha's eyes. "I'm falling for you too. You've shown me in Brooklyn more kindness than anyone ever has. You've given me hope for a future I never thought I could have. You make me feel safe and valued and loved." "You are loved," Harrison said softly. Then, slowly, giving Tasha every chance to pull away, he leaned in and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, sweet and full of promise. Tasha's heart soared as she kissed him back, letting herself feel all the emotions she'd been holding back. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. "Well," Harrison said with a grin, "that was even better than I imagined." Tasha laughed. "You imagined kissing me?" About 100 times a day, Harrison admitted, making Tasha laugh harder. They spent the rest of the afternoon in Harrison's office, talking about everything and nothing. Harrison shared stories about building his business from nothing. Tasha talked about her dreams for Brooklyn's future. They discussed the foundation's work and the changes they could make together. As evening approached, Harrison suggested they pick up Brooklyn from school together and go out for dinner to celebrate Tasha's new job. At the elementary school, Brooklyn came running out when she saw Harrison's truck. She'd grown comfortable with him over the past weeks, and her face always lit up when she saw him. "Harrison," Brooklyn called, running to hug him. Then she noticed her mama in the passenger seat. "Mama, what are you doing here? Are you feeling okay?" "I'm feeling great, baby," Tasha said, smiling. "Harrison took me to see his office today. Did you like it?" Brooklyn asked excitedly as she climbed into the back seat. "I loved it," Tasha confirmed. "So much that I accepted a job there." Brooklyn's eyes went wide. "Really? Mama, that's amazing. Does that mean we won't have to worry about money anymore?" The fact that a 7-year-old even had to think about money broke Tasha's heart. Children should never have to worry about whether there's enough food or if the rent will be paid. "That's exactly what it means," Tasha said, turning in her seat to look at her daughter. "Things are going to be better for us now, baby. So much better." Harrison drove them to a family restaurant, the kind with a fun kids menu and a welcoming atmosphere. Over dinner they laughed and talked like the family they were slowly becoming. Brooklyn kept looking between her mama and Harrison with a knowing smile. "You're both acting weird," she announced suddenly. "Weird how?" Harrison asked, amused. "Happy weird," Brooklyn said. "Like you have a secret." Tasha and Harrison exchanged glances. Tasha took a breath. "Brooklyn, how would you feel if Harrison and I spent more time together? Not just as friends but as more than friends." Brooklyn tilted her head, considering. "You mean like boyfriend and girlfriend?" "Something like that," Tasha confirmed. Brooklyn's face broke into the biggest smile. "I think that would be great. Harrison's really nice and he makes you smile, Mama. You don't smile enough." Tasha felt tears threaten. "Oh, baby. Plus," Brooklyn added matter-of-factly, "Harrison gives the best piggyback rides and he's teaching me about motorcycles. If he's your boyfriend, does that mean he'll be around even more?" Harrison laughed. "If that's okay with you, then yes. I'd like to be around a lot more." "Good," Brooklyn said, returning her attention to her chicken nuggets. "Can we get ice cream after this?" The easy acceptance from Brooklyn warmed both Tasha and Harrison's hearts. Sometimes children understood what adults made complicated. After dinner, true to Brooklyn's request, they stopped for ice cream. Brooklyn got chocolate with sprinkles. Tasha got vanilla. Harrison got cookies and cream. They ate their ice cream at a small outdoor table as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "This is perfect," Tasha said softly, watching Brooklyn chase a drip of ice cream down her cone. "It really is," Harrison agreed, reaching over to take Tasha's hand. That night, after Harrison dropped them home and left with promises to return tomorrow, Brooklyn cuddled with Tasha on the couch. "Mama?" Brooklyn said sleepily. "Yes, baby? I think we're going to be happy now. Really happy." Tasha kissed her daughter's forehead. "I think so too, baby. I really think so too." As Brooklyn drifted off to sleep, Tasha reflected on how dramatically life had changed in just 2 weeks. From tragedy and fear to hope and love. From barely surviving to actually thriving. From being alone to having someone who genuinely cared. Harrison had asked her earlier if she believed in fate. Tasha wasn't sure. But she did believe that sometimes, out of the worst moments, could come the most beautiful beginnings. And this was definitely a beautiful beginning. The call came early on a Wednesday morning. Harrison's phone rang while he was making breakfast at Tasha's apartment, where he'd started spending more and more time. He glanced at the screen and his expression turned serious. "It's Attorney Foster," he said to Tasha before answering. "Richard, good morning?" "Yes. When?" "Perfect. We'll be there. Thank you." He hung up and turned to Tasha with determination in his eyes. "The factory has requested a meeting. Tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. They want to discuss settlement terms." Tasha's heart raced. "They're ready to settle?" "Sounds like it," Harrison confirmed. "But we're not going to their office. Richard insisted the meeting happen at his law office on neutral ground." "I'm nervous," Tasha admitted. Harrison moved to her side and wrapped her in a gentle hug. "You're going to be amazing. You're strong and you know your worth. Don't let them intimidate you." The next day, Tasha dressed in a professional navy blue dress that Rachel had helped her shop for. Her cast had been removed just 2 days earlier, replaced with a supportive brace. The wrist was still healing but much better. She wore a maroon scarf for a pop of color and confidence. Harrison wore a sharp charcoal suit and looked every inch the powerful businessman he was. Together they went to Attorney Foster's office, a sleek suite on the 23rd floor of a downtown building. Attorney Foster met them in the conference room. He was prepared, with multiple folders and documents spread across the large table. "All right," Attorney Foster said, "here's what to expect. The factory will likely have their legal team, probably 2 or 3 lawyers. They'll try to control the narrative and minimize their liability. Don't let them. We have all the evidence on our side." Right on time, the factory's representatives arrived. There were 3 of them, 2 attorneys in expensive suits and the factory's operations manager, a nervous-looking man in his 50s named Gerald Whitmore. The tension in the room was immediate. "Let's get down to business," one of the factory's attorneys said. His name was Charles Brennan, according to his business card. "Our clients are prepared to offer Miss Coleman $200,000 to settle this matter quickly and quietly." Tasha's eyes widened. $200,000 was an enormous amount of money. But Attorney Foster didn't even blink. "That's insulting given the evidence we have. Shall we go through it? We have video footage of the assault. We have testimony from 15 factory workers about Greg Morrison's pattern of abuse. We have documentation of your company's safety violations. We have proof that you hired Morrison despite knowing his violent history. We have evidence of falsified safety reports and defective products that endangered children." "Should I continue?" Charles Brennan's jaw tightened. "You're making unfounded accusations about our safety protocols." "Unfounded." Attorney Foster opened a folder and slid several documents across the table. "These are Consumer Product Safety Commission complaints about your products. These are internal emails showing that management knew about defective materials being used. These are witness statements from workers who were told to falsify quality control reports. Nothing about this is unfounded." The second attorney, a woman named Patricia Sanders, spoke up. "Even if there were operational issues, that doesn't directly connect to Mr. Morrison's actions. He was a rogue employee who exceeded his authority." "That won't work in court," Attorney Foster countered smoothly. "Morrison had a documented history of violence at previous jobs. Your company failed to do adequate background checks. That's negligent hiring. Furthermore, after previous incidents at your facility where Morrison displayed aggressive behavior, management took no disciplinary action. That's negligent retention. You're absolutely liable." Gerald Whitmore, the operations manager, looked increasingly uncomfortable. He was sweating despite the cool office temperature. Harrison leaned forward. "Let me make something clear. This isn't just about money for Miss Coleman, though she certainly deserves substantial compensation for her injuries and trauma. This is about accountability. Your factory has been putting profits over safety for years. You've endangered workers and children. That ends now." "Mr. Drake," Charles Brennan said, his tone condescending, "with all due respect, you're not a party to this lawsuit. This matter is between my clients and Ms. Coleman." "True," Harrison said calmly. "But I'm the one funding a comprehensive investigation into your factory's practices. I'm the one who provided evidence to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, which is now conducting their own investigation. I'm the one who contacted news outlets, 3 of which are preparing investigative reports about your company. So while I may not be a party to this lawsuit, I'm very much involved in ensuring justice is served." The room went silent. Charles Brennan and Patricia Sanders exchanged worried looks. Finally, Patricia spoke. "What are you asking for?" Attorney Foster slid another document across the table. $500,000 in compensation to Ms. Coleman. An additional $1 million to establish a worker safety fund for all Prestige Toys employees. Full admission of liability from the company. A commitment to comprehensive safety reforms, including third-party inspections quarterly for the next 5 years. Immediate termination of all managers who knew about and ignored safety violations. And Greg Morrison must plead guilty to the assault charges with no plea bargaining down to lesser offenses." Charles Brennan laughed bitterly. "That's absurd. We'll never agree to those terms." "Then we'll see you in court," Attorney Foster said pleasantly. "Where all of this evidence will become public record. Where journalists will cover every day of the trial. Where your company's reputation will be destroyed. Where the jury will likely award even more in punitive damages. Your choice." Gerald Whitmore looked like he might be sick. He leaned over and whispered urgently to the 2 attorneys. Patricia Sanders cleared her throat. "We need to consult with our clients. Can we have a 30-minute recess? Take your time, Attorney Foster said. The factory's team left the conference room. As soon as the door closed, Tasha let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That was intense, she said. You did great, Harrison reassured her, taking her hand under the table. You stayed calm and let Richard handle them. Do you think they'll agree? Tasha asked. They'd be fools not to, Attorney Foster said. We have them completely cornered. If this goes to trial, they'll lose big. They know it. 25 minutes later, the factory's team returned. Charles Brennan looked like he'd aged 5 years in less than half an hour. We've consulted with our clients, Charles said stiffly. They're prepared to agree to most of your terms with some modifications. $400,000 for Ms. Coleman. $750,000 for the Worker Safety Fund. Admission of negligence but not full liability, the distinction matters for insurance purposes. Commitment to safety reforms as outlined. Termination of managers who knowingly ignored violations. And regarding Mr. Morrison, we have no control over criminal proceedings, but we won't oppose a guilty plea. Attorney Foster looked at Tasha and Harrison. Your thoughts? Tasha's heart pounded. $400,000. It was more money than she'd ever imagined having. It would change everything for her in Brooklyn. But Harrison was looking at her with an expression that said, it's your choice, but don't sell yourself short. Tasha took a deep breath and found her voice. I want the full amount. $500,000. And $1 million for the worker fund. And full admission of liability, not just negligence. Your company knew what was happening and allowed it to continue. Own it. Charles Brennan started to protest, but Gerald Whitmore cut him off. Agree to it, Gerald said firmly. Everyone turned to look at him in surprise. Just agree to it? She's right. We knew. I knew. I should have stopped Morrison years ago, but I was afraid to rock the boat. I should have reported the safety violations, but I was worried about keeping my job. Miss Coleman and her daughter suffered because of my cowardice and the company's greed. Give her what she's asking for. It's the right thing to do. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Patricia Sanders nodded slowly. I'll recommend to our clients that they accept these terms. Attorney Foster pulled out a legal pad. Then let's draft the settlement agreement right now. No one leaves this room until it's signed. For the next 2 hours, the attorneys worked on the exact language of the settlement. Tasha sat beside Harrison, their hands intertwined as her future was written in legal terminology. Finally, the document was ready. Attorney Foster reviewed every line with Tasha, making sure she understood exactly what she was agreeing to. Then, with a slightly shaking hand, Tasha signed her name. Charles Brennan and Patricia Sanders signed on behalf of Prestige Toys Manufacturing. Gerald Whitmore signed as a company officer. Attorney Foster signed as witness. It was done. As the factory's representatives gathered their things to leave, Gerald Whitmore approached Tasha. Miss Coleman, he said quietly, I'm sorry. For everything. I should have protected you and the other workers. I failed and I'm sorry. Tasha looked at this man who seemed genuinely remorseful. Thank you for saying that. I hope you'll do better going forward. Gerald nodded. I will. I'm retiring next month. But before I go, I'm going to make sure the reforms happen. I owe at least that much to the people who worked under me. After everyone had left except Harrison, Tasha, and Attorney Foster, Tasha finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. We won, she whispered. You won, Harrison corrected, pulling her into his arms. You stood up to them. You didn't back down. You fought for what was right. I'm so proud of you. Tasha buried her face in Harrison's chest and let the tears come. They were tears of relief, of joy, of triumph. Attorney Foster smiled warmly. Miss Coleman, the funds will be transferred within 30 business days. In the meantime, I'll file all the necessary paperwork with the court. Congratulations. You did something truly brave today. That evening, Harrison took Tasha and Brooklyn out for a celebration dinner at the nicest restaurant in the city. Brooklyn wore her favorite red dress, and Tasha wore the green dress Harrison had bought her last week. Over dessert, Tasha explained to Brooklyn what had happened in age-appropriate terms. So the factory had to say they were sorry and pay money to make things right? Brooklyn asked. That's right, baby, Tasha confirmed. Good, Brooklyn said firmly. They should be sorry for what they did. Harrison raised his glass of sparkling cider, which Brooklyn had been delighted to get her own glass of. A toast. To Tasha, the bravest woman I know. To Brooklyn, who had the courage to ask for help when it mattered most. And to new beginnings. They clinked glasses, and Tasha felt happiness bubble up inside her like the fizzy cider. What will you do with the money? Harrison asked curiously. Have you thought about it? Tasha had been thinking about little else for the past few hours. First, I want to set up a college fund for Brooklyn. A really good one that will make sure she can go to any school she wants without worrying about cost. Second, I want to buy us a home. Not fancy but ours. Safe and stable. Third, I want to help Rachel. She's been so good to us and I know she's struggling with her own bills. Fourth, I want to donate some to causes that matter, maybe workplace safety organizations or domestic violence shelters. And fifth, I want to save the rest for emergencies in the future. Harrison looked at her with such admiration that it made Tasha's cheeks warm. Those are wonderful plans. And I'd like to help with the house hunting if you'll let me. I know some excellent real estate agents. I'd appreciate that, Tasha said softly. Brooklyn had been listening intently. Mama, does this mean we can get a house with a yard? So I can play outside? Yes, baby, Tasha said, her voice thick with emotion. We can get a house with a yard. Brooklyn's squeal of delight made several other restaurant patrons smile. As they drove home that night, Brooklyn fell asleep in the back seat, worn out from excitement. Harrison carried her up to the apartment, and Tasha unlocked the door quietly. After tucking Brooklyn into bed, Harrison and Tasha stood in the living room together. This was an incredible day, Tasha said softly. You were incredible today, Harrison replied. Watching you stand your ground, demand what you deserved, refuse to be intimidated. Tasha, you were magnificent. I couldn't have done it without you, Tasha said. You gave me the courage to fight. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Harrison cupped her face gently. I'll always believe in you. Always. He kissed her then, sweet and deep, and Tasha felt herself melting into his embrace. This man had changed her entire life in a matter of weeks. He'd shown her kindness, respect, and genuine care. He'd given her the tools to fight for justice and the support to win. But more than that, he'd given her something she'd been missing for so long, love. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Stay? Tasha asked quietly. Not like that. But just stay. Sleep on the couch. I just want you near. I'd love to stay, Harrison said. They sat together on the couch, Tasha curled into Harrison's side, and talked late into the night about dreams and futures and possibilities. And for the first time in 7 years, Tasha allowed herself to imagine a life beyond mere survival. A life filled with joy and security and love. A life that was just beginning. The news broke 3 days after the settlement. A local television station ran a special investigative report about Prestige Toys manufacturing, detailing the safety violations, the assault on Tasha, and the subsequent settlement. The reporter, a young woman named Michelle Torres, did an excellent job presenting the facts compassionately but thoroughly. Within hours, the story had spread. It was picked up by regional news networks, then national ones. Social media exploded with support for Tasha and outrage at the factory. Tasha woke up to find her phone flooded with messages. Friends from high school she hadn't talked to in years were reaching out. Former co-workers from the factory were texting their support. Complete strangers were sending encouragement through social media. Mama, look, Brooklyn called from the living room where she was watching television before school. You're on TV. Tasha hurried in to see footage of the factory with her name appearing on screen. The report showed a brief interview with Attorney Foster discussing workplace safety and corporate accountability. This is surreal, Tasha said, sinking onto the couch beside Brooklyn. Her phone rang. It was Harrison. Have you seen the news? Harrison asked. I'm watching it right now. Harrison, this is overwhelming. People are talking about me everywhere. They're supporting you, Harrison corrected. Tasha, you've become a symbol. You represent every worker who's been mistreated, every person who's been afraid to speak up. You showed that fighting back is possible. Later that morning, after Brooklyn had gone to school with Rachel, there was a knock on Tasha's apartment door. When she opened it, she found 3 of her former co-workers from the factory standing there. Tasha, said Brenda, a woman in her 40s who'd worked the packing line. We saw the news. We wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For standing up, said Thomas, a young man who'd worked in shipping. After you left, more of us started speaking up about the problems at the factory. We contacted the union. We filed formal complaints. The investigation you triggered has given all of us the courage to demand better. The third worker, an older woman named Louise, handed Tasha a card. This is from all of us. 37 workers signed it. Tasha opened the card to find a heartfelt message thanking her for her bravery and wishing her well. Many of the signatures included personal notes. Tears pricked her eyes. I don't know what to say, Tasha said. You don't have to say anything, Brenda replied with a warm smile. You've already done more than enough. Because of you, the factory has new management. Real safety inspections are happening. Greg Morrison is facing criminal charges. You changed everything, Tasha. After her former co-workers left, Tasha sat with the card in her hands, rereading the messages. She'd never thought of herself as brave or strong. She'd just been a mother trying to protect her child. But apparently that simple act of maternal love and courage had rippled outward, affecting dozens of lives. The phone rang again. This time it was a producer from a daytime talk show asking if Tasha would be interested in appearing on their program to discuss workplace safety and standing up to corporate bullies. Tasha politely declined. She wasn't ready for that level of public attention. But she appreciated that people wanted to amplify her story. That afternoon, Harrison came by with a surprise. He'd brought members of his biker club, the same men who'd helped that first terrible day. Tasha, you remember Tony, James, and Kevin? Harrison said as the bikers entered the apartment, each carrying packages. Of course, Tasha said warmly. You all helped save my life that day. We wanted to bring Brooklyn some gifts, Tony said, setting down a large wrapped box. We heard what a brave kid she is. And we brought this for you, James added, handing Tasha an envelope. Inside was a beautiful card and a check for $5,000. What? Tasha gasped. No, I can't accept this. It's from the entire biker club, Kevin explained. 20 members pitched in. We want Brooklyn to have an amazing Christmas. And we want you to know that you have a whole community behind you. Tasha's eyes filled with tears. This is too much. It's exactly enough, Harrison said gently, putting his arm around her shoulders. Let people celebrate your victory with you. Let them show their support. That evening, when Brooklyn got home from school, she was thrilled to see the bikers again. Tony showed her pictures of motorcycles and explained how different engines worked. James taught her a complicated handshake. Kevin brought his guitar and played silly songs that made Brooklyn giggle. Watching Brooklyn laugh and play, surrounded by these tough but gentle men, Tasha felt her heart swell. Community. That's what this was. Real, genuine community. Over the next week, support kept pouring in. Local businesses offered Tasha jobs. A car dealership heard that she took the bus everywhere and offered her a reliable used car at cost. A dentist offered free dental care for Brooklyn. A salon wanted to give Tasha a makeover for free. It was overwhelming and wonderful and sometimes too much all at once. Through it all, Harrison was her anchor. He helped her navigate the attention. He screened interview requests and helped her decide what opportunities to accept and what to decline. He celebrated with her when the support felt affirming and held her when it felt overwhelming. One evening, about 10 days after the news broke, Harrison took Tasha to a community center across town. He'd been mysterious about why, just asking her to trust him. When they arrived, Tasha saw that the parking lot was full. Inside, a large meeting room was packed with people. As soon as Tasha entered, everyone started clapping. What is this? Tasha whispered to Harrison. You'll see, he replied with a smile. A woman approached them. She was in her 50s with graying hair and a professional demeanor. Miss Coleman, I'm Andrea Mitchell. I'm the director of the Workers' Rights Coalition. We wanted to meet you and thank you personally. Tasha was led to the front of the room, where a podium had been set up. Andrea stood at the podium and addressed the crowd. Tonight, we're here to honor Tasha Coleman, a woman who refused to stay silent in the face of workplace abuse. Tasha's courage has inspired legislative action. State representatives have introduced new bills to strengthen workplace safety protections and increase penalties for companies that retaliate against workers who report violations. Tasha's story has given voice to thousands of workers who've suffered in silence. The crowd applauded again. Tasha felt both humbled and empowered. Andrea continued, We'd like to present Tasha with the Coalition's Courage Award, which recognizes individuals who've made significant contributions to workers' rights through their brave actions. Tasha accepted the beautiful Crystal Award, and Andrea encouraged her to say a few words. Tasha approached the podium nervously. I don't know what to say, Tasha began honestly. I never set out to be brave or to become a symbol. I was just a mother protecting her child. But if my story helps even one person find the courage to speak up against injustice, then everything I went through was worth it. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I want to thank Attorney Richard Foster for fighting for me. I want to thank the people who witnessed what happened and had the courage to give statements. I want to thank the investigators who uncovered the truth. And I want to especially thank Harrison Drake and his friends, who literally rode to my rescue when I needed help most. Tasha looked at Harrison, who was standing at the side of the room watching her with pride shining in his eyes. Harrison showed me that there are still good people in the world, Tasha continued. People who will help strangers without expecting anything in return. People who use their resources to lift others up. People who believe in justice and kindness and love. He changed my life and my daughter's life. And he's helping me change other people's lives through the foundation work we're starting together. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. After the formal presentation, dozens of people approached Tasha to share their own stories of workplace mistreatment. Each story broke her heart but also strengthened her resolve to make a difference. An older man told her about being fired after reporting safety violations at his construction job. A young woman shared how she'd been harassed by a supervisor but was too afraid to report it. A middle-aged mother explained how she'd been forced to work overtime without pay and threatened with termination when she objected. Tasha listened to each person, gave hugs when appropriate, and promised that she would work through the Drake Foundation to help address these systemic issues. By the time they left the community center 3 hours later, Tasha was emotionally exhausted but also deeply moved. "That was incredible," she said to Harrison as they drove home. "All those people. All those stories. And you're going to help them," Harrison said. "Through the foundation, through advocacy work, through simply being visible and vocal about these issues. Tasha, you're making a real difference." "We're making a difference," Tasha corrected. "I couldn't do any of this without you." Harrison reached over and took her hand. "We make a good team." "We really do," Tasha agreed softly. When they got back to the apartment, Brooklyn was already asleep. Rachel had stayed with her and reported that bedtime had gone smoothly. After Rachel left, Tasha and Harrison sat together on the couch, the television playing quietly in the background. "Harrison," Tasha said, "can I tell you something?" "Always." "A month ago I was barely surviving. I was working 2 jobs, struggling to pay rent, worried constantly about Brooklyn's future. I was exhausted and scared and felt completely alone. And then you came into our lives and everything changed." Tasha turned to face him fully. "You didn't just help us financially, though that's been life-changing. You gave us hope. You showed Brooklyn that there are adults in the world who will protect her. You showed me that I deserve kindness and respect. You made us feel valued and loved." Harrison's eyes were soft as he listened. "I know we haven't known each other long," Tasha continued. "I know this all happened fast. But Harrison, I need you to know that I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I'm already there. And it terrifies me because I haven't let myself love anyone since Brooklyn's father left. But with you I can't help it. You're amazing and kind and good and I love you." Harrison's smile was radiant. He cupped Tasha's face in his hands. "Tasha, I love you too. I've loved you since the first week when you showed such strength despite being hurt and scared. I love your resilience. I love your kindness. I love the way you love Brooklyn. I love everything about you." He kissed her then, and it was different from their previous kisses. This kiss held promise and commitment. This kiss was about forever. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling through happy tears. "So what happens now?" Tasha asked softly. "Now," Harrison said, "we keep building this life together. We work on the foundation. We help people. We create a home for you in Brooklyn. We love each other. We see where this takes us." "I like that plan," Tasha said, snuggling into Harrison's embrace. They sat together in comfortable silence, and Tasha reflected on how sometimes life's worst moments lead to the most beautiful transformations. A month ago she'd been a victim of violence, scared and hurt. Now she was a survivor, an advocate, a woman in love, a person with purpose and hope and a bright future ahead. And it had all started because a little girl had been brave enough to ask for help, and a man on a motorcycle had been kind enough to give it. Sometimes, Tasha thought, angels wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles. 6 weeks had passed since the settlement, and life had transformed in ways Tasha could never have imagined. She'd officially started her position at the Drake Foundation, working 3 days a week while she continued to build her strength and confidence in her new role. The other 2 weekdays she spent attending meetings, visiting communities, and learning everything she could about philanthropy and social justice work. Brooklyn was thriving too. She'd settled into a new routine, with Rachel still helping out but now more as a beloved family friend than a necessity. Brooklyn's teacher had reported that she was doing excellently in school, her confidence and happiness showing in her academic work and social interactions. But the most significant change was in Tasha's relationship with Harrison. They were officially a couple now, though they'd been taking things slowly out of respect for Brooklyn and the newness of their relationship. Harrison had met them for dinner almost every evening. On weekends they'd go on adventures together, the three of them becoming a makeshift family. Today was special. Today Tasha and Harrison were going to look at houses. The settlement money had been transferred, and after setting aside funds for Brooklyn's college, savings, charity donations, and gifts to people who'd helped them, Tasha still had enough for a substantial down payment on a home. Harrison picked up Tasha and Brooklyn early on Saturday morning. He'd arranged for a real estate agent named Patricia Wong to show them several properties in safe, family-friendly neighborhoods with good schools. The first house they saw was nice but too small. The second was larger but in a neighborhood too far from Brooklyn's school. The third was almost perfect but needed extensive repairs that Tasha didn't want to deal with. Then Patricia took them to the fourth house and Tasha felt her breath catch. It was a beautiful two-story home painted cheerful yellow with white trim. The yard was spacious with mature trees that would provide perfect climbing opportunities and shade. There was a front porch with a swing, and the whole place looked warm and welcoming. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, Patricia explained as she unlocked the front door. Completely updated kitchen and bathrooms. New roof 2 years ago. The owners are relocating for work, so they're motivated to sell quickly. Inside the house was even better. Hardwood floors throughout, lots of natural light, a cozy living room with a fireplace, and a kitchen that was modern but not cold. Upstairs, the bedrooms were generously sized. "Mama, look," Brooklyn called from one of the bedrooms. "This room has a window seat. Can this be my room?" Tasha entered the room Brooklyn had claimed. It was painted a soft lavender and had built-in bookshelves along one wall. The window seat overlooked the backyard, where Tasha could see a wooden playset that apparently conveyed with the house. "Do you like it, baby?" Tasha asked, though Brooklyn's expression already told her the answer. "I love it," Brooklyn breathed. "Mama, can we live here? Please?" Tasha felt tears prick her eyes. She'd never imagined being able to give Brooklyn something like this. A real home with a yard and space to grow. Harrison appeared in the doorway, having been exploring the rest of the house. "What do you think?" he asked Tasha softly. "It's perfect," Tasha admitted. "But is it too much?" "The price is." "The price is fair for the neighborhood and the condition of the home," Patricia interjected professionally. "And you're well within your budget with room to spare." Harrison put his hand on the small of Tasha's back, a supportive gesture that had become familiar and comforting. "If you love it, go for it. This could be home." Home. The word resonated in Tasha's heart. "I want to make an offer," Tasha said decisively. Patricia smiled. "Excellent. Let's write it up." 2 hours later, sitting in Patricia's office, Tasha signed the offer paperwork. Patricia submitted it immediately, and they waited anxiously for a response. The call came while they were having lunch at a family restaurant. The owners had accepted Tasha's offer. The house would be hers. Brooklyn literally jumped up and down with excitement. Harrison wrapped Tasha in a congratulatory hug. And Tasha cried happy tears into her sandwich. "We have a house," Tasha kept saying. "Brooklyn, we have a house. A real house." Over the next few weeks, while the home inspection and financing were finalized, Harrison helped Tasha prepare for the move. He took her furniture shopping to fill the larger space. He introduced her to a handyman who could handle minor repairs. He even helped her pick out paint colors for Brooklyn's new room. But more than the practical help, Harrison provided emotional support. He understood that buying a home was a huge step for Tasha, a symbol of stability and permanence she'd never had before. He celebrated each small milestone in the process with her. They also spent more time together as a couple, not just as Tasha, Brooklyn, and Harrison, but as Tasha and Harrison. Rachel would watch Brooklyn some evenings, allowing Tasha and Harrison to go on actual dates. One evening, Harrison took Tasha to a nice restaurant overlooking the river. They sat on the outdoor patio under string lights, and Tasha wore a beautiful emerald green dress that Harrison had complimented 3 times already. "Tell me about your dreams," Harrison said over dessert. "Not just practical dreams like homeownership, but big dreams. Things you've always wanted to do or see or experience." Tasha thought about it. "I've always wanted to travel. I've never been outside this state. I'd love to see the ocean. I'd love to visit historical sites and museums. I'd love to show Brooklyn that there's a whole world out there beyond what she's known." "Then let's do it," Harrison said simply. "What?" "Let's travel. Not right away, obviously. You're settling into your new job and getting the house. But in a few months, let's take a trip. The 3 of us. Wherever you want to go." Tasha's eyes widened. "Harrison, that's what families do," Harrison finished. "They make memories together. Tasha, I want to make memories with you in Brooklyn. I want to show you both the world. I want to give Brooklyn experiences that expand her horizons. I want to see your face when you see the ocean for the first time. You keep saying we're a family, Tasha said softly. Aren't we? Harrison asked. Maybe not officially yet. But in every way that matters, we're a family. I love you. I love Brooklyn. I want to be part of your lives forever if you'll have me. Tasha reached across the table and took Harrison's hands. I want that too. So much. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just holding hands and smiling at each other like teenagers in love. Harrison, Tasha said eventually, I need to ask you something. It's about Brooklyn. Okay, Harrison said, his expression attentive. She's been asking me about her father lately, Tasha explained. Asking why he left, if he ever thinks about her, if she did something wrong. Harrison's expression turned protective. She didn't do anything wrong. I know that and I've told her that. But she's at an age where she's noticing that other kids have dads and she doesn't. And then you came into our lives and you've been so wonderful with her. She's attached to you, Harrison. She looks at you like. Tasha's voice caught. She looks at you like you're her dad. Harrison's eyes were suspiciously bright. How do you feel about that? I love it, Tasha admitted. You're the father figure she deserves. You show up. You care. You protect her and make her laugh and teach her things. You're everything her biological father wasn't. I love Brooklyn like she's my own, Harrison said, his voice thick with emotion. I know I haven't known her long, but Tasha, that little girl has my whole heart. When she calls me to read her bedtime stories, when she shows me her artwork from school, when she asks me to push her on the swings, I feel like the luckiest man alive. She wants to know if she can call you Dad, Tasha said quietly. She asked me yesterday if it would be okay. I told her I needed to talk to you first. Harrison wiped at his eyes, not bothering to hide his tears. Are you serious? Tasha nodded. She said, and I quote, Harrison is nicer than any dad could be, so maybe he could just be my dad. Harrison stood up abruptly and walked to the railing of the patio, looking out at the river. Tasha gave him a moment, understanding that he was overwhelmed. When he turned back, his face was wet with tears but smiling. Nothing would make me happier than having Brooklyn call me Dad. Nothing. But Tasha, if she's going to call me Dad, I want to do this right. I want to legally adopt her. I want her to be mine in every way. Is that something you'd consider? Now Tasha was crying too. Yes. Yes, absolutely yes. Harrison returned to the table and pulled Tasha up into his arms, holding her close. We're really doing this. We're really becoming a family. We already are a family, Tasha murmured into his chest. We're just making it official. That night, when they got back to Tasha's apartment, Brooklyn was still awake despite the late hour, too excited about the house to sleep. Harrison knelt down to her level. Brooklyn, your mama and I talked about something tonight, Harrison said gently. She told me you've been thinking about maybe calling me Dad. Brooklyn's eyes went wide and she looked nervously at her mama. Am I in trouble? No, baby, Tasha reassured her. Not at all. Harrison continued, Brooklyn, I would be honored if you called me Dad. There's nothing in the world I'd like more. Because I love you like you're my daughter, and I want to be your dad in every way. Brooklyn's face lit up like sunrise. Really? I can call you Dad. Really? Harrison confirmed. Brooklyn threw her arms around Harrison's neck. Dad, she said, testing out the word. Dad. My dad. Harrison hugged her tight, and Tasha saw his shoulders shaking with emotion. Her heart felt so full it might burst. There's more, Tasha said. Harrison wants to adopt you, which means you'd officially be his daughter. How would you feel about that? Brooklyn pulled back to look at Harrison with wide, hopeful eyes. Adopt me? Like be my dad forever and ever? Forever and ever, Harrison promised. Yes, Brooklyn said immediately. Yes, please. I want that so much. They group hugged then, all three of them crying happy tears. And Tasha thought about how sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones you choose, not the ones you're born into. Later, after Brooklyn had finally fallen asleep, Tasha and Harrison sat on the couch together. This is really happening, Tasha said wonderingly. We're buying a house. You're adopting Brooklyn. We're building a life together. Are you scared? Harrison asked. Terrified, Tasha admitted. But also happier than I've ever been. Is that weird? Not weird at all, Harrison assured her. I'm terrified too. Terrified I'll mess something up or let you down. But I'm also so excited for our future. We'll figure it out together, Tasha said. Together, Harrison agreed, kissing her forehead. As Tasha drifted off to sleep that night, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From that terrible day when Greg Morrison had hurt her, to the moment Brooklyn ran for help, to Harrison riding into their lives like a hero from a storybook. Every painful step had led to this beautiful place. Tomorrow she'd wake up as a woman with a good job, a house in the works, and a man who loved her and her daughter enough to build a family with them. It was more than she'd ever dreamed possible. And the best part? This was just the beginning. 3 months had passed since Harrison had agreed to adopt Brooklyn. The legal paperwork was in progress, with attorney Foster handling everything efficiently. The house purchase had been finalized and they'd been living in the yellow house for 6 weeks now. Tasha had never been happier. Every room of the house held happy memories already. The kitchen where Harrison had taught Brooklyn to make pancakes. The living room where they'd had movie nights cuddled together on the new couch. The backyard where Brooklyn played on the swings while Tasha and Harrison sat on the patio drinking coffee and talking for hours. Harrison had his own key now and spent most evenings with them. Some nights he stayed over, sleeping in the guest room to maintain appropriate boundaries in front of Brooklyn. The relationship had deepened and strengthened, but both Tasha and Harrison agreed that they wanted to do things properly, especially with Brooklyn involved. On this particular Saturday, Harrison had planned something special. He told Tasha to dress casually and comfortably, and he picked up both her and Brooklyn mid-morning. Brooklyn was in on the secret, judging by the excited glances she kept exchanging with Harrison. "Where are we going?" Tasha asked for the 3rd time. "You'll see," Harrison said with a mysterious smile. He drove them to the park where they'd spent many weekend afternoons. But today something was different. There was a picnic area that had been decorated with balloons and flowers. A large blanket was spread out with a picnic basket, and soft music was playing from a portable speaker. "Harrison, what is all this?" Tasha asked as they got out of the car. "A special day," Harrison said simply. "Come on." They walked to the picnic area, and Tasha noticed that several of Harrison's biker club friends were there, along with Rachel, Nurse Margaret, Attorney Foster, and even Jennifer from the foundation office. They were all smiling warmly. "Are these people here for us?" Tasha asked, confused but touched. "Just wait," Brooklyn said, bouncing excitedly. Harrison led Tasha to the center of the blanket and had her sit down. Brooklyn sat beside her mama, barely able to contain her glee. Harrison remained standing, looking down at Tasha with an expression so full of love it made her breath catch. "Tasha," Harrison began, his voice clear and strong, "3 months ago my life was empty. I had money and success but no real purpose. No joy. No connection to anything that mattered. Then a brave little girl ran up to me in a parking lot and asked for help, and everything changed." Tasha's heart started beating faster. She had a feeling she knew where this was going, but she didn't want to assume. Harrison continued, "You and Brooklyn have given me something I didn't even know I was missing. You've shown me what it means to be part of a family. You've taught me that real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but in moments of connection and love. You've made me want to be better, do better, give more." He knelt down on one knee and Tasha gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Tasha Coleman," Harrison said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket, "I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love your strength, your kindness, your beautiful smile. I love the way you love Brooklyn so fiercely. I love the way you see the best in people. I love everything about you." He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a diamond surrounded by smaller emeralds set in white gold. "Will you marry me?" Harrison asked. "Will you let me be your husband, Brooklyn's father, and part of your family forever? Will you build this life with me?" Tears were streaming down Tasha's face. She looked at Brooklyn, who was nodding enthusiastically and whispering, "Say yes, Mama." Tasha looked back at Harrison, this wonderful man who had ridden into their lives and changed everything. "Yes," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Harrison's smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto Tasha's finger. It fit perfectly. Then he pulled her up and into his arms, kissing her as their friends and family cheered and applauded. Brooklyn jumped into the hug, and the 3 of them stood there holding each other while everyone celebrated around them. "We're really getting married?" Tasha said, laughing and crying at the same time. "We really are," Harrison confirmed. "If you'll have me." "If I'll have you?" Tasha laughed. "Harrison, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me besides Brooklyn. Of course I'll have you." The rest of the afternoon was magical. They had a picnic feast with all of Tasha's favorite foods. Friends gave toasts and shared stories. Tony from the biker club told an embarrassing story about the first time Harrison had tried to ride a motorcycle and had fallen off immediately. Rachel talked about how she'd known from the first week that Harrison and Tasha would end up together. Brooklyn gave a speech about how she'd prayed for a dad and got the best one in the whole world. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Harrison pulled Tasha aside for a private moment. "I have something else to tell you," Harrison said, taking both of Tasha's hands in his. "More than proposing?" Tasha asked with a laugh. "The adoption paperwork for Brooklyn came through yesterday," Harrison said. Attorney Foster rushed it. "The hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. By the end of this month, Brooklyn will legally be my daughter." Tasha threw her arms around Harrison's neck. "Really? That fast? Really? And there's one more thing," Harrison said. "I talked to my mother. She's flying in next week. She wants to meet her future daughter-in-law and her new granddaughter." "Your mother is coming here?" Tasha felt a flutter of nerves. "She's going to love you," Harrison reassured her. "I've told her all about you and she's already in love with the idea of Brooklyn. She's bringing my sister too. Fair warning, they're both huggers and they're going to bombard you with wedding planning ideas." Tasha laughed. "I can't wait to meet them." That evening, after everyone had left and they'd returned home, Brooklyn was too excited to sleep. She kept looking at the ring on Tasha's finger with wonder. "Mama, you're going to be Mrs. Drake," Brooklyn said. "And I'm going to be Brooklyn Drake. We're going to have a real last name together." "We're going to be a real family," Tasha agreed, tucking Brooklyn into her bed with the lavender walls and window seat. "We already are a real family," Brooklyn said wisely. "We've been a real family since Dad helped us. Now we're just making it official." "When did you get so smart?" Tasha asked, kissing her daughter's forehead. "I've always been smart," Brooklyn said matter-of-factly. "I was smart enough to ask Dad for help that day." "Yes, you were," Tasha agreed. "You saved us, baby." "Dad saved us," Brooklyn corrected. "I just knew he would." After Brooklyn fell asleep, Tasha went back downstairs where Harrison was cleaning up the kitchen. She wrapped her arms around him from behind. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For proposing. For loving us. For choosing us. For making all of this possible." Harrison turned in her arms and looked down at her seriously. "Tasha, you need to understand something. I didn't choose you and Brooklyn out of charity or pity. I chose you because you make me happier than I've ever been. You make me laugh. You challenge me to be better. You've given my life meaning and purpose. If anything, you're the one who saved me." "We saved each other," Tasha said. "We saved each other," Harrison agreed. They stood in the kitchen holding each other, and Tasha thought about how perfectly everything had worked out. How one terrible day had led to the most beautiful transformation. "When do you want to get married?" Harrison asked. "Soon," Tasha said immediately. "I don't want a huge wedding or a long engagement. I just want to be your wife." "How about 3 months?" Harrison suggested. "That gives us time to plan something nice but not so long that we're waiting forever." 3 months sounds perfect, Tasha agreed. Over the next few days, life became a whirlwind of planning and preparation. Harrison's mother and sister arrived, and just as he predicted, they immediately embraced Tasha and Brooklyn with open arms and endless enthusiasm. Harrison's mother, Margaret Drake, was a warm woman in her 60s with silver hair and her son's kind eyes. She hugged Tasha like they'd known each other for years. "My son has been alone for too long," Margaret said. "I'm so grateful he found you. You've made him happy in a way I haven't seen since he was a boy." Harrison's sister Caroline was in her late 30s and had her brother's smile. She fell in love with Brooklyn immediately, spending hours playing with her and telling her stories about Harrison as a child. The adoption hearing was held on a Wednesday afternoon in a judge's chambers. Tasha, Harrison, and Brooklyn all dressed up for the occasion. Brooklyn wore her favorite red dress. Tasha wore blue. Harrison wore a sharp suit. Judge Martha Franklin presided over the hearing. She was an older woman with a kind but no-nonsense demeanor. She reviewed the paperwork carefully, asked Harrison and Tasha questions about their relationship and their plans for Brooklyn's future, and then turned to Brooklyn herself. "Brooklyn," Judge Franklin said gently, "do you understand what adoption means?" "It means Harrison becomes my dad forever," Brooklyn said confidently. "Officially. That's right. And is that what you want?" "More than anything," Brooklyn said. "He's already my dad in my heart. This just makes it real on paper too." Judge Franklin smiled. "That's a very mature answer. Harrison, do you promise to love, protect, and provide for Brooklyn as your daughter for the rest of your life?" "I absolutely do," Harrison said, his voice thick with emotion. "Then by the power vested in me by the state, I grant this adoption. Harrison Drake, Brooklyn is now legally your daughter. Congratulations to your family." Harrison immediately picked up Brooklyn and spun her around as she squealed with delight. Tasha hugged them both, crying happy tears. "We're officially a family," Harrison said, his own eyes wet. "We're officially a family," Tasha echoed. That night, they celebrated with a family dinner at home. Margaret and Caroline joined them, and the house was filled with laughter and joy. Brooklyn kept introducing Harrison as "my dad" to everyone, even people who already knew, just because she loved saying it. As Tasha looked around the dinner table at her family, both old and new, her heart was so full of gratitude and love. She thought about that terrible day 3 months ago when everything had seemed hopeless. She never could have imagined that such darkness would lead to such light. But here they were. Happy, safe, loved, and whole. Later that night, after Margaret and Caroline had returned to their hotel and Brooklyn was asleep, Harrison and Tasha sat together on the porch swing in the backyard, looking up at the stars. "In 3 months we'll be married," Tasha said softly. "In 3 months you'll be my wife," Harrison agreed. "Mrs. Tasha Drake." "I like the sound of that," Tasha said, snuggling closer to him. "Me too," Harrison replied, kissing the top of her head. They swung gently back and forth, comfortable in the silence. The future stretched out before them, bright and full of possibility. And neither of them could wait to see what came next. 6 months had passed since the proposal, 3 months since the wedding. The wedding had been beautiful and intimate, held in the backyard of their yellow house. About 50 people had attended: Harrison's biker club, Tasha's former co-workers and friends, the foundation staff, Rachel, Nurse Margaret, and various people whose lives had been touched by their story. Tasha had worn a simple but elegant ivory dress. Brooklyn had been the flower girl in a beautiful emerald dress that matched the stones in Tasha's engagement ring. Harrison had worn a dark suit with a green tie to match. They'd exchanged vows under an archway decorated with flowers, promising to love and support each other through all of life's challenges. When the officiant had pronounced them husband and wife, Brooklyn had cheered so loudly everyone had laughed. Then Harrison had kissed his bride while their daughter danced around them happily. The reception had been casual and fun with good food, music, and dancing. Tony from the biker club had given a toast about how he'd never seen Harrison happier. Rachel had cried through her entire speech about watching their love story unfold. Brooklyn had given a toast too, thanking Harrison for being the best dad ever and thanking her mama for being brave enough to let love in. It had been perfect. Now, 3 months into marriage, life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. Tasha was thriving at the Drake Foundation, having discovered that she had a real talent for connecting with people and understanding their needs. She'd helped establish 3 new programs: one for single mothers in crisis, one for workplace safety education, and one providing resources for families affected by workplace injuries. Brooklyn was excelling in school and had made several close friends in their neighborhood. She took dance classes twice a week and had recently expressed interest in learning to play guitar, which Harrison was teaching her. Harrison had taken a step back from some of his business responsibilities to focus more on the foundation work and his family. He discovered that he was happier doing meaningful work with people he loved than chasing the next business deal. And Greg Morrison? He'd been sentenced to 2 years in prison for assault and witness intimidation. Prestige Toys Manufacturing had been permanently shut down after the investigation revealed extensive fraud and safety violations. The former owners were facing their own criminal charges. Justice had been served. But today was extra special. Today they were celebrating. Tasha, Harrison, Brooklyn, and the entire extended family, including Margaret and Caroline who had flown in for the occasion, gathered at the house for a celebration dinner. The reason? The Drake Foundation had just received official nonprofit status and a major grant that would allow them to expand their programs significantly. But there was another reason to celebrate, one that only Harrison and Tasha knew about yet. As everyone gathered around the dinner table, laden with food prepared by Rachel who'd become essentially part of the family, Harrison stood up to give a toast. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," Harrison began. "6 months ago, I married the love of my life and officially became a father to the most amazing daughter anyone could ask for. Today we're celebrating the foundation's success. But Tasha and I have one more piece of news to share." He looked at Tasha, who stood up beside him, smiling nervously. "We're pregnant," Tasha announced. "I'm 8 weeks along. Brooklyn is going to be a big sister." The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. Brooklyn literally jumped out of her chair screaming with excitement. "A baby?" Brooklyn shouted. "I'm going to have a baby brother or sister?" "You are," Tasha confirmed, laughing at her daughter's enthusiasm. Brooklyn ran to her parents and hugged them both. "This is the best news ever. Can we name the baby if it's a girl?" I have good ideas. We'll definitely take your suggestions, Harrison said, grinning. Margaret was crying happy tears. Another grandbaby. Oh, this is wonderful. The rest of the evening was filled with joy and celebration. People shared advice about babies, told funny stories about pregnancy and parenting, and speculated about whether the baby would be a boy or girl. Later that night, after everyone had left and Brooklyn had finally gone to bed after hours of excited chattering about being a big sister, Tasha and Harrison sat together on the porch swing they'd come to love. Can you believe all this? Tasha asked, her hand resting on her still flat belly. 7 months ago I was scared and alone, working 2 jobs just to survive. Now I'm married to an incredible man, I have a job I love, we have this beautiful home, and we're bringing another baby into the world. It's been quite a journey, Harrison agreed, putting his arm around her shoulders. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Brooklyn hadn't run up to you that day? Tasha asked. Sometimes, Harrison admitted. But I don't like to think about it. Because this, right here, right now, is exactly where I'm supposed to be. With you. With Brooklyn. Building this life together. I love you, Tasha said softly. I love you too, Harrison replied, kissing her gently. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, swinging gently. Then Tasha spoke again. Harrison, do you remember what I said on our wedding day? In my vows. You said a lot of beautiful things, Harrison replied. I said that you taught me that kindness and hope and love can change everything, Tasha reminded him. I want to make sure we pass that lesson on to our children. I want Brooklyn and this new baby to grow up knowing that they should always help people who need it. That they should lead with love. That they should never be afraid to do the right thing even when it's hard. We will, Harrison promised. We'll teach them by example. We'll show them what it looks like to care for others, to fight for justice, to build community. You're going to be an amazing father to this baby, Tasha said. You already are an amazing father to Brooklyn. And you're an incredible mother, Harrison replied. Our kids are lucky to have you. Our kids, Tasha repeated with a smile. I love saying that. They stayed outside for another hour, talking about names for the baby, planning how they'd rearrange the bedrooms, discussing how they'd balance their foundation work with having a newborn in the house. Every challenge felt manageable because they'd face it together. Finally, they went inside and checked on Brooklyn one more time. She was sleeping peacefully, her arms wrapped around the doll named Hope that Harrison had bought her so many months ago. She's grown so much, Tasha whispered, brushing hair from Brooklyn's forehead. She has, Harrison agreed. And she's going to be an amazing big sister. In their own bedroom as they got ready for bed, Tasha looked at the framed photos on their dresser. There was one from their wedding day, all 3 of them laughing. There was one from the adoption hearing, Brooklyn holding her official adoption certificate proudly. There was one from the foundation's opening event, Tasha cutting a ribbon while Harrison and Brooklyn cheered her on. We should add more frames, Tasha said. For all the memories we're going to make. We'll need a lot of frames, Harrison said with a smile. As they lay in bed that night, Harrison's hand resting on Tasha's belly where their baby was growing, Tasha reflected on the journey that had brought them here. It had started with violence and fear. With a broken doll and a mother's pain. With a little girl brave enough to ask for help and a man generous enough to give it. But it had transformed into something beautiful. A love story built on kindness and respect. A family formed through choice rather than just biology. A purpose found in helping others. A future bright with promise. Harrison. Tasha said into the darkness. Oh. Thank you for riding into our lives that day. Harrison pulled her closer. Thank you for letting me stay. Forever? Tasha asked. Forever, Harrison promised. And as Tasha drifted off to sleep, safe and loved and happier than she'd ever been, she knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, certainly. But with Harrison by her side, with their children to love, with their purpose to fulfill, and with a community that supported them, anything was possible. Sometimes the worst days lead to the best lives. Sometimes angels wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles. Sometimes a little girl's courage changes everything. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, hope and love and kindness really do win in the end. 5 years later, the Drake Foundation had grown exponentially. What had started as a small operation had expanded to help thousands of people across multiple states. They'd opened satellite offices, hired staff, and created programs that were making real differences in communities. Tasha was now the foundation's director, having proven herself to be a natural leader with genuine compassion and excellent organizational skills. She spoke at conferences about workplace safety and workers' rights. She'd been featured in magazines and on television. But most importantly, she helped people every single day. Brooklyn was now 13 and thriving. She was still the bright, brave girl she'd always been, but now she volunteered at the foundation helping younger kids. She'd become an advocate for children's rights and had even started a program at her school to help students whose parents worked in difficult jobs. The baby, a boy they'd named Marcus. Wait, no, that's a disallowed name. Let me correct that. The baby, a boy they'd named Ethan, was now 4 years old. He had Harrison's smile and Tasha's kindness, and he followed his big sister everywhere. Brooklyn adored him and took her role as big sister very seriously. Harrison had found his purpose. Between his family and the foundation work, his life was full of meaning. The biker club still rode together on weekends, but now they often rode to different communities to deliver supplies or visit families the foundation was helping. And every year on the anniversary of that first terrible day when Greg Morrison had hurt Tasha, the family visited the park where Harrison had proposed. They'd talk about how far they'd come, how much they'd grown, and how grateful they were for second chances and new beginnings. Because in the end, their story wasn't really about a billionaire saving a struggling family. It was about hope. It was about kindness. It was about love changing lives and second chances and families formed through choice. It was about a little girl who was brave enough to ask for help, a man who was kind enough to give it, and a woman who was strong enough to accept it and build something beautiful from the broken pieces. And they all lived happily ever after.